Even though I've made a few tutorials about using the Nextion display with Arduino, a few of my subscribers asked me to show the entire process to make a project from scratch. This video is going to be longer than usual, so if you want a quick and simple tutorial, I suggest you to watch my other videos about this subject. But if you want to see how I create a project from scratch, I hope this helps. I start by creating a new project. Select your display and orientation. The most basic thing will be adding a number box. It's not showing anything because we have to add a font. If you already have a font file, you can add it here, but most likely you're going to have to generate one. There are a bunch of fonts available, but I strongly suggest you to use a monospace font to make sure all characters are shown correctly. Here I listed my recommended fonts. For this project, I will use consolas. You can write any name in here. Also write a file name, but it's not important. Actually, you can later delete the file if you want. Click yes to import the font into the project. Here's the font. You can change any of the attributes of this object. The most important is the VAL for the value. You can also change the colors. The way to send values through the serial port will be like this. First, you send the name of the object, which is n0.val, because we want to change the value, equal a number. Let's test it using Arduino. I compile the project and copy the TFT file into a micro SD card. I have a sketch ready for this. It reads the value of a potentiometer and sends it through the serial port. As before, we send the name of the object, the attribute, and the new value. The only difference is that we need to send these 3 lines after each command. Now I will add a text box. Instead of the VAL attribute, we have txt for the text. We had to increase the limits. Let's say 30. I think I better add a background image. Just make sure the dimensions of the image are the same as your display. Select the background. Instead of solid color, I select an image. I want the background of the text to look transparent, so I choose crop image and select the image. Now to send text, we write the name of the object, txt, and the actual text in quotes. I also want a gauge. Actually, I have an image for the gauge, but I think the best way to add it is to include it on the background. I'm not very good with Photoshop, but this is not that complicated. Add the new background. Select the new image. Now the text is still using the old image. The value for the gauge is from 0 to 359. A progress bar. Value is from 0 to 100. A bottom. I add another page. I read here that I want to go to page 1 when we press the button. The number of the page is over here. we need a back button, but instead of going to page 1, we go to page 0. I better test everything. We need to upload a new sketch. Now it will send a text depending on the value of the potentiometer. Remember to send the double quotes before and after the text. Here I remap the value of the potentiometer to a new range, and if it's above 359, subtract 360 so the value starts from 0. And we send that to the gauge. I remap the potentiometer to a range from 0 to 100 for the progress bar. Now I add a timer so I can change the color of the number depending on the value. If N0 value is above 500, the attribute is PCO for the color. I will set to this color if the value is above 500. Else set the color to green. I don't like the flickering of the gauge, so I usually refresh the gauge only if the new value is different than the current one. To do this, I add a variable, and instead of sending the value directly to the gauge, we send it to the variable. And we check if the value of the gauge is different than the variable. If they are different, we send the new value to the gauge. Obviously, we have to change the sketch to send the gauge value to the variable. I made a mistake here. The timer is running every 400 milliseconds. It should be 50 to have the best result. The next step will be sending data to Arduino. I will make a button to turn on the LED. Since I wanted to turn on when I press it and turn off when I release it, I have to check these two to send press and release events. I have these images for the bottom. A similar thing for the dual state button, but we send only a press event. Here we see the code that the display is sending. This time we need to use the Nextion library, and for that I will use my previous sketch as a guide to add those buttons in my new sketch. I need to write the ID of the button, that in this case is 2. Here's the instruction to turn on the LED if we press the button, and turn off if we release it. Same thing for the dual state button, but this time when we receive a press event, we read the state of the button. Now we have to connect the blue cable to pin 0. I remember that we have to make sure to not send data to objects that are not present on the current page. So what I do is to let Arduino know in what page the display is in and only send this data if it's on page 0. I need to add the pages in the touch events. We need to send a touch event when we load the pages. I think I better use my old project to copy the code. This is the number of the page. Oh, I forgot to add this variable for the pages. We need to disconnect the blue cable to be able to upload the sketch. Now reconnect the blue cable. And at last it's working. Well, I wish this was useful and good luck with your projects. See ya!